to welcome everybody to our parent education event on design thinking. We do have quite a few people online that are joining us as well today. I'd like to thank all the parents for bringing out your students and giving them an opportunity to present their knowledge and to help inform our community about what exactly design thinking is. And it's one of the most asked questions from our new parents. What exactly is design thinking? So we will be recording this event for our parents to access at a later date. So if you know somebody who missed it and wants it, it'll be up on the website. All right. So we're going to go ahead and get started. See if I can drive. So at NEAT, we use design thinking as a process to help our students connect to the real world and to make community connections, to learn a problem-solving process, and to use a universal process for problem solving, and help them learn to think outside of the box, which is really important as they grow and learn. So there's different steps to the design thinking process. So they are to empathize, to define, ideate, and create a prototype, and then test. And we're going to have each of the design thinking coaches come up, and they're going to introduce themselves and tell you about a part of the design thinking process.
Hello, my name is Amber Jones. I am the 5th grade design thinking coach, and I'm going to talk about empathy tonight. So empathy is the first step in the design thinking process because it is a skill that allows us to understand and share the same feelings that others feel. Through empathy, we are able to put ourselves in other people's shoes and connect with how they might be feeling about their problem, circumstance, or situation. Some questions to consider is, what is the person feeling? What actions or words indicate this feeling? Can you identify their feelings through words? What words would you use to describe their feelings? And these are just some of the guiding questions that students can reflect on to identify the problem and how other people are feeling about it. Some of the ways that we are teaching empathy in 5th grade and beyond is how to read body language and facial expressions, how to be an active listener, the importance of using kind words, how to show genuine care and concern for others, how to learn humility and the art of the apology, learning to recognize and acknowledge when people show care and concern for us by writing thank you notes.
Ms. Alvarez? Don't trip over the cord.
Good evening. I'm Coach Alvarez, and I teach 6th grade design thinking. The defined part phase is the second phase, and it is taken from the empathy research. It's actually what you're doing is analyzing what the problems are and what you need to figure out to solve them all so that you can move on to the next step, which is Id8.
I'm Coach McDonald. I am 7th grade design thinking. And so the Id8 phase is that brainstorming. It's that gathering as many ideas as possible to solve the problem that you're defining. So you're coming up with a worst case, best case, and everything in between. It's really about encouraging that wild ideas, really thinking outside of the box, and pushing kind of boundaries of solving that problem. And then once you have that brainstorm set of ideas, then you go into that stage of prototyping. You're testing out to see which idea will work best. So with prototyping, you're going through that creation and experimentation. You're building and representing more than just the one idea and testing those different solutions. You're focusing on specific features. You're going in and checking to see maybe some minor adjustments here and there. But really coming up with how can I create my ideas. And remember that this part is
Hi, I'm Coach Dale Berry. I teach 8th grade design thinking, and the testing phase is pretty much where you take that rough draft of a prototype and you test it. And if it works, great, then you can add more to it if you need to, and that becomes your final prototype. Now, if it doesn't necessarily work out, then that's where you have to go back completely, either just try a new prototype or add more to it, and then you test again. And normally, after the test, you have to do some kind of reflection to say what worked, what didn't work, and if you wanted to, what could work in the future.
So each of our design thinking classes that meet are kind of a stepping stone. Just like math, they build on each other. So in the lower grades, they take an art lens for design thinking. So they use the design thinking process through art. And then when they reach the upper grades, in 7th grade, they do more visual communication, 3D construction, more engineering. And then finally, when they reach the 8th grade, they look at the design thinking project through engineering and technology. So it builds up as we work through the neat process. So there is no better way to learn, in my opinion, than to hear from a student. They have the greatest way of expressing what things are. So we'd like to take this opportunity to have some of our students present some projects and what they've done in the design thinking process.
So the student that will represent 5th grade is Alyssa Davenport.
Hi, parents and guardians. My name is Alyssa Davenport, and I am in 5th grade. If I had to pick one of my favorite subjects I have done in my life, my class would be design thinking. I want you to know that design thinking is more than just arts and crafts. It also has engineering and lots of fun in the subject. My favorite thing that I have studied this year is optical illusions. Here's a piece that I have done. I think this heart piece is the best because I use my ruler to make sure my squares have even sides. The first thing that I learned in design thinking is the design thinking process, which helps me in all my core classes, such as empathy, caring and learning about others, define what is the problem, ideate, finding ideas and solutions, prototype, how to present and build your idea, test, the final modifications, and presentation. This process helps you have a good project and done properly. For example, we used this process when we made paper masks. When we saw how people felt under the mask, that is empathy. When Ms. Jones told us that the mask could not have eyeballs and had to be the size of our faces, that is define. We drew it out and made a plan. In other words, we did ideate. I made the hair, eyes, nose, face, that is prototype. Test is when we did a gallery walk and voted whose is the best. Nice job, Jody. On another note, we do drawing videos from a website called Art Hub for Kids. Here's some of my pieces. Here's a campfire and ground, and here's a cooking log. By doing this, helps me fine tune on small details. Well, here's my paper mask.
I don't think it got in there, honey.
My paper mask was on the side before this. I hope I proved my point. I hope you understand that design thinking is wonderful. Thank you for listening. Have a great night. Any questions?
Great job.
For 6th grade, design thinking, we have Allison Crop.
I'm going to be talking about our Mars Pod project and how we use design thinking process to make it. Design thinking standards. Design thinking is a process that helps with problem solving when trying to design and create art. There are 5 steps to the design thinking process. Step number 1 is empathy. What can I learn about the user and what are the needs? For example, I'm the user and I'm trying to live safely on Mars. Step number 2 is define what is the problem, and then you have to do research on what is the problem. Suggestions would be like the problem are, how are we going to get food, water, heating, cooling, and how are we going to deposit human waste? And step number 3 is ideate. How do I generate ideas? By brainstorming. In art, this is usually when we produce a preliminary sketches for our artwork before we start the actual art. Our sketches, we had a floor plan and our Mars pod picture. Step number 4 is prototype. This is the actual finished artwork or project. And test is when we test our project. And the questions we ask would be, does the finished artwork or project work? Does this meet all the required standards? Does anything need to be refined or reworked? This is my Mars house. Thank you.
All right, for 7th grade, we have Kendall Bowen.
So the engineering design process to me is a series of steps leading up to one main thing. So in 7th grade, we did a project called the Innovation Graphic Essay. And basically for this project, we got to choose any topic practically that has an innovation behind it. So there was such as transportation, fashion, cars, and etc. So for mine, I chose fashion. And the way that we use the engineering design process for this, we use the main parts that we use, first of all, were questions, brainstorming, plan and create, and build and create. So for this project, we had to brainstorm what innovation that we wanted to choose and brainstorm. Some of the questions were, who are the innovator, what is the history behind it, and how it can impact history. So this is where I did fashion. And then we did plan and create by planning out how we wanted to format it, doing our rough draft, and then putting it onto a final piece of paper. And the last thing was build and create, and that's when we put it all together and made our model.
Good job.
To represent 8th grade, it's commerce. So we have 5 different steps of the design thinking process. We've got empathize, and that is when we understand the deep feeling of what our design process we need to do. So our problem that we need to solve, we understand a great understanding of that. We use our define phase is when we understand what the problem that we need to do and how to solve it. We have our Id8 phase. That's when we brainstorm with our groups or by yourself on what possible solutions need to be solved. And we have our define stage, prototype stage, and that's when we create our design and that will help solve our problem. And our test phase is when we have our prototype and test it. And the way that we chose for 8th grade is our drone PBL project. We had to make an unmanned vehicle or a drone, for example, and we had to make it. So we first understood by using our empathize stage by understanding our essential question. That's our empathize stage. We then use our define phase by understanding what problems needed to be solved. And we use our ideate phase to finally understand what to do. Our prototype phase is when we created a map of our drone and problem, and we solved it. We then tested it by going out in the halls and marking our drone or unmanned vehicle in a path from house to house.
Great job.
so we are going to take a moment. Ms. Mamini is going to come up and explain a project, and you are going to go through the stages of design thinking to solve a very current and very important problem.
Good evening, I'm Kimberly Malwinning, I'm your Director of STEM here at Id8. And so right now, we do have a relevant problem, shipping and shipping cargo, right? Everything's backed up and we need presents and toys to get here for Christmas. And so there's our problem. We need to empathize what the problem is, right? There's a lot of reasons why we need to solve this problem. Got about a couple of them in the room, right? So we are going to actually make a boat that can hold as much cargo as possible. Now, in this scenario, pennies are our cargo. And because we have a backup of the boats, we need to put as much cargo on one boat as possible without the boat sinking. So you have in front of you a piece of aluminum foil. You're going to use this aluminum foil to design a boat and create a prototype of your boat. Then you are going to test your boat by putting as much cargo in it as you can until it sinks. And then if it sinks after only a few pennies, then what do we need to do? We need to go back, redesign, recreate our boat, and see if we can figure out which design is going to hold the most cargo so we can get all that stuff where we need it to be. So now I'm going to turn it over to you. There's buckets of water at the end of the table. If you're at home and you want to try to do this and actually just get a bucket and fill it up with water, or even just your kitchen sink, a piece of aluminum foil, make your boat and put as many pennies in until it sinks. So I'm just going to turn it over to y'all to build and create now. So there's water over to test your boat. We were mad at each other.
Oh, are we supposed to do it together?
I'm going to make my own. You make your own. We got plenty of aluminum foil in case we need to redesign. The pennies are right in front of us. So there's some at that end. There's a whole setup, and you're going to need to wait until your boat gets in the water anyway for the pennies. That's why we've left it down there. Now, we should put a time limit on this, right? So put it in the water and then drop your pennies in to see how many it will hold. Yeah. We'll think it already. I did it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I wasn't even thinking about that. Right here, you wasn't thinking about the board meeting on Thursday. I was thinking about television. Too many confusion.
Alright, I got one coming.
Grab it. Maybe I should have brought some more pennies.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. Yeah.
Don't dump water. Don't dump water.
When water starts getting in.
How many did that?
Yep, so Karen, did you have to redesign?
No, I did not.
How many do you have?
Oh, we got a little water in there.
Oh.
28.
How many do you have?
28.
Cool. All right, honey, you gotta be 28.
Oh, man.
Oh, here, let me get some.
But it was also a good place in there.
Mechanical, aeronautical engineer.
Ah.
I know exactly what you would do.
Now I'm going to keep pennies.
What's that fancy dog? No, I hold 28.
Yeah, you did. Wow, you got all the pennies in there, huh? Nice. Yeah, you definitely.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming out tonight. Please continue to experiment with your votes. I am going to put up a virtual feedback form, a QR code for a feedback form. Please take a minute before you leave to scan it with your camera, and it'll take you right to the form. And if you could give us feedback on tonight's event, we'd really appreciate it.